hybrid work schedules could increase. Then we got salary negotiations, less traffic, e-commerce, other businesses being affected, and then renewable energy. But this is the focus here, hybrid work schedules. Could they possibly be impacted? And also we're going to be talking about fintech and internet. Oh yeah, see, internet penetration, I just said that. 48.2%, this is your broadband internet penetration. Can this sustain more people working at home if they decide that it's too expensive to get to the office? And also, if more people are working at home and more people on the internet, what about fraud? What about KYC? So, Esigie Aguele, he's in our Abuja studios. He's the CEO of VerifyMe. They do this stuff all the time. They deal with KYC and stuff. Esigie, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. So, you think subsidy removal will boost remote work or more hybrid arrangements, or people like, are you sending all your VerifyMe staff to work from home now?
Well, I would say we were already working from home before, right? I think ever since COVID, nobody really went back home. But of course, there will be more of a shift towards making life more comfortable or quality of life better for staff members. So definitely we're already talking about that today. And so if the staff members that are left, definitely we're already considering that for them. In terms of internet penetration, of course, there is going to be an impact. So the 48% number is not high enough for us. It needs to be much higher. And there's the penetration, but there's also the quality in terms of, the ability for telcos to, put in more cell towers for, quality of signal across the country as well. Because you can have access to internet, but is it even usable for a collaborative work environment where you're sharing information and sharing much more data that you'll be using normally? So those are also the issues that obviously the auxiliary issues that will come along with that.
All right, Esigie, we got to talk about fraud. We got to talk about safety here. You guys do this. You're in the KYC space, verification, right? If more people are moving to the internet as a result of it's too expensive to drive to the office, and there's a shift. It was kind of like the Naira redesign where there wasn't cash and people were moving to point of sale and so on and so forth. What are the risks here with fraud, and what are folks like you in the space doing to try to counter that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and really not even the field issue, right? The risk with fraud is that as you have more and more people move into digitization, an identity goes from manual to digital identity, and transactions go from manual transactions to digital transactions. What you are going to see an explosion of is fraud. Right, and of course there are different types of fraud, and we talk about this all the time. So there's the identity fraud, there's the phishing fraud, and identity fraud is where somebody is using multiple accounts or BVNs, people's BVNs to get access to services. Another one where one is using the same person but multiple IDs. So there are different types of fraud, and it's not peculiar to Nigeria. This is what happens as a result of an explosion in digitization. So what next needs to happen is, and of course, this is what we work on, is to collaborate with our partners and release products that really do help solve the fraud problem. So our B2B platform, for example, that we offer to our customers helps to solve a lot of the fraud problems using biometrics to make sure people cannot use multiple IDs. So the complexity here, I would say, is not that the services are not available to deal with the fraud issues that we have. The real challenge here is to get our customers and the fintech industry, the lenders, to socialize them to understand that they actually are available products to help deal with a lot of fraud issues already, and that Nigerian KYC operators are already sharing data, which is the layer that they need to plug into so that they can deal with their fraud issue.
Esigie, I want to ask you about database. You obviously have a database over at VerifyMe. The President Tinubu met with security chiefs earlier on today. Take a look at this list, right? And it's the third item I want you to talk about. His action plan on security. Anti-terrorist battalions, yes. Upgrade weapon systems, yes. At the bottom, the last one, improve salaries and welfare. Integrated identity database. I'm not asking you about security. I want to ask you about, as far as reducing fraud, how do we spread our databases? Is it VerifyMe has a database and other players have a database and the government has a database, or can everything be integrated? Is that even possible, or does everyone work in silos? This is again with regards to, I know I'm tying it to terrorism and insecurity, but it also leaks into everything else, credit checks, finance, loans, but particularly for internet fraud. Talk to me about the integrated identity database and whether that works.
Yeah, and of course, the president even has already talked about the credit culture. So let's separate two things. So there is the foundational identity. When we talk about an integrated database where there's only one authoritative source, and that is the government. It's not VerifyMe, and we don't have a database of identities. What we do have a database of is functional information that gives customers insight. So whether it's financial insight, location insight, risk insight, default risk insight, employment insight. So different types of I would say functional information that's layered on that identity. The way the world is going, it's identity, pretty much biometrics, which is going to kind of lock that identity in place, and then all the other functional sets of data that are ever changing, right? And this is why you check it occasionally that are attached to that identity. But to answer your question specifically, what needs to be integrated is I would say government repositories where there is for example, you have NIN and then you have driver's license. And I believe actually that they are harmonized. So it's going towards more of that harmonization. In terms of integration, where I think maybe, we would need definitely government partners is in helping set the stage or ecosystem with regulation for where we can have centralized fraud reporting information, for example, for private sector, not for government to own it, but for government to help us regulate it so that it can exist. And then plug into the sustainable layer, which I believe, and of course, me and my friends and competitors, that we are the natural layer because we provide information to customers at the point of onboarding. We really are the only ones that can provide that quick risk information to say, well, you've onboarded this customer, but here's this fraud information as well. So to plug into that and build that. So that's the type of harmonization that needs to happen on our end.
All right, interesting 4 years ahead, private sector, public sector. Esigie Aguele, CEO of VerifyMe, thank you so much for talking to us about reducing internet fraud using KYC processes.